The purpose of this video is to help healthcare professionals engage in successful interactions when working with interpreters. Working effectively with interpreters is a developed skill that is crucial when providing service to patients or families who speak a language other than English. By working with an interpreter, patients and families will have greater access to healthcare services. Without the assistance of an interpreter, families are unable to schedule therapy appointments, express their concerns, or understand parent education or recommendations made by service providers. Interpreters also assist with increased patient compliance. When recommendations and home treatment programs are given to families in their home language, their likelihood of achieving family buy-in and follow-through is much higher. Both families and service providers are able to understand and express themselves more clearly with the assistance of an interpreter. Interpreters help bridge the gap between the family and service provider. 3 examples of legislation that indicate the required use of interpreters or other trained bilingual personnel include the National Standards for Culturally and Linguistically Appropriate Services in Healthcare from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Office of Minority Health, Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, Improving Access to Services for Persons with Limited English Language Proficiency, Executive Order 13166. So let's take a look at tips on how to collaborate effectively with interpreters and service providers. Tip number 1, talk directly to the patient. Direct your message, both verbal and nonverbal, to the patient. This helps build rapport and develop a relationship despite the language barrier. Avoid saying phrases such as, tell them that, or she says that. Speak directly to the family as if the interpreter was not present.
How long have you been concerned about just communication development?
¿Cómo cuánto tiempo ha tenido usted preocupación sobre el desarrollo de Juanita?
Creo que desde que cumplió los 2 años, no empezó a hablar hasta los 2 años y medio.
I think right around 2 years old. He didn't start speaking until he was 2.5 years old.
Tip number 2, clearly define roles of all attendees and the purpose of the meeting. It is important to define roles of all individuals present at the beginning of the meeting. This helps the patient understand the purpose of each person present. Patients are able to direct their questions and comments to the appropriate parties. It is also beneficial to state the purpose of the meeting. Since this is oftentimes an unfamiliar experience for families, reviewing the purpose of the meeting provides families more context and why they are there.
Welcome to the clinic. Let's start by going around the table and introducing ourselves. My name is Rui and I'm a speech language pathologist.
Bienvenidos a la clínica. Empezaremos hoy por presentarnos. Mi nombre es Rui y soy la patóloga de lenguaje y de habla.
Gracias, mucho gusto. Yo soy Manuel y ella es mi esposa Sara.
Thank you. Nice to meet you. My name is Manuel and this is my wife Sarah. Soy Jesús, yo soy el intérprete. Voy a traducir la junta de hoy. Si tienen cualquier pregunta, por favor díganme y lo aclararemos con la patóloga. I'm Jesus, I'm the interpreter. I'll be interpreting today's meeting. If you have any questions of what's being interpreted, please let me know and I will clarify it with the speech pathologist.
Okay. So we're here today to evaluate your son's speech and language development. What brought you in today? What are your main concerns?
La cita de hoy es para evaluar el desarrollo de habla y de lenguaje de su hijo. ¿Cuál es la razón de su visita y cuáles son sus preocupaciones principales?
Tip number 3, use clear and direct language. Avoid idioms and define acronyms and professional jargon. To help make your message as clear as possible, use simplified sentences to assist with the interpretation process. Simplified language eases the interpretation process to transmit the original message accurately. Also, avoid idioms as their meanings will be lost in translation. It is important for the professional to define any acronyms and professional jargon.
Does your child have any articulation difficulties? Articulation means the way that you pronounce words and sounds, and also how clear his words are.
Su hijo tiene dificultades en articulación. Articulación significa la manera como su hijo produce sonidos y claridad de su habla.
Sí, muchas veces es difícil entender lo que nos dice.
Yes, many times it's difficult to understand what he is saying to us.
Okay.
Tip 4, side conversations. Interpreters are responsible for interpreting all conversations so that the patient has access to the entire meeting. It is important to eliminate any side conversations as the interpreter is only capable of interpreting one message at a time.
So I saw in the file that your son has a history of chronic ear infections. Have you ever had pressure equalizing tubes put in?
Miren el expediente que su hijo tuvo
So,
infecciones
I believe
crónicas del
the
oído.
kid from the last
En algún momento le han
appointment.
colocado
I think
tubos
you
de
should have
ventilación.
asked him some other questions
Excuse
about how,
Excuse me, can you have more conversation, please?
okay.
Sí, se los pusieron, creo que fue en julio del año pasado.
Yes, they put them in July of last year, I think.
Tip number 5, seating. Arrange seating to facilitate open communication is another important factor of having a successful interaction with an interpreter. This can vary depending on the type of meeting, number of people involved, type of interpretation, and language being used. Typically, triangle, horseshoe, or circle formations are preferred when using an interpreter. When working with a patient who uses American Sign Language, it is particularly important to arrange appropriate lighting and seating to ensure the patient can see both the service provider and the interpreter.
Hi, it's nice to meet you guys. I'm Rui. I'm the speech therapist. It's nice to meet you.
Mucho gusto, yo soy Rui, la patóloga de habla y de lenguaje.
I think this might work a little bit better if we all sit in a U shape.
Pienso que tal vez esto funcionará un poco mejor si nos sentamos en una forma de U.
I think that way we can all see each other.
De esa manera nos podemos hablar y ver juntos.
Okay.
Okay, so what brought you guys in today?